I grew up in Singapore.
How was life growing up?
I think I really live a very typical Singapore life, go to kindergarten, go to primary school, and the nature of very much my family upbringing has always been get a good education, get out, get a job, and effectively your life will be all smooth and without any so-called excitement of the likes. Coming from a very traditional family background, my father has always been really strict, similar as my mother as well. My father started off very much from working in the areas of being an engineer, making watches and things of the likes, and eventually going towards areas of administration, had an opportunity eventually become a general manager of a German listed company, and eventually started growing up the ranks very much from the most bottom, and eventually becoming a president of and on the board for a large German so-called MNC. And that was really rare during that days, primarily because at the point of time, he was probably one of the first few Asians that managed to get on board a German listed company many years back. And at the point of time, education wasn't even something that was huge, right? Being able to get to Polytechnic, being able to get a degree was something that was really large by itself. So my father very much came from a background that was super strict and focused a lot in the areas of work. Whereas on my mother's side, she was a teacher, and through that itself, academia and ensuring that we did well in our studies and making sure everything is well taken care of, that's where she really focused on from a household perspective and making sure all our needs were being met. I was reading really a lot. I just was digging into huge amounts of books because that's something I find so fascinating, that we can learn so much from just the books that we read and move into a world that is a totally different world itself, right? Being in the character as well as the worlds that's being created within the books itself. I think when I was 7 or 8, probably wanted to be like an astronaut or something,
really?
Right? I mean, just sometimes watching some of the movies, looking up at stars and looking at so-called falling stars and the likes. I think that's something that's really amazing, where when you look up in space, it's just limitless and all the different possibilities can happen. So I was really passionate about aeroplanes, making forms of origami, paper planes all the time, and imagining what it would be to be a pilot, to be able to fly up to space and the likes. So that was something that I was really so-called interested in when I was really young. I think my most treasured memory, I think that's a fantastic question. I think I just like to read. I just really like to read all the different books that I have. Didn't really do much sports though, but just immersed into books. That's something I just really enjoyed.
So you're not much of an athletic?
I would say when I was young, not much. I was in like the fat boy club. When young and becoming a bit older, it's a bit different. But I guess when growing up, I really started to have some passion for sports, whether it's from basketball to cycling to swimming to running, and started having a lot of passions around that. But I guess when I was just really young, I just really liked reading a lot. Yeah. But one of them that stand out really distinctively, it's a book called Ender's Game. And it's one of my favorite movies as well. It's about this child prodigy, and in a world where they say that the future of the world really lies in some of the genius so-called young kids, and they were able to eventually invade alien species, and having that tactical knowledge to be able to so-called take out the alien species and the likes. One of the fantastic best books that I've read.
What is it like being business in such a young age?
I guess it's quite interesting because a lot of people I interact with, especially when I first started, were probably like double my age or even more, right? And I guess I was very lucky as well because they were in a way willing to talk to me. Somehow I guess I was just too young to be intimidated. I didn't know what fear was like. I was just talking to them and asking them all the silly questions and just super curious.
You're not afraid to look dumb.
Yeah, I guess at the point of time I was just so inquisitive and curious, and I guess the curiosity just didn't allow me to actually be intimidated and of the likes. I just asked the most basic questions, and I was very lucky that a lot of them actually answered it with a lot of earnest, with a lot of genuinity and sharing so-called their experience. I guess that's what really made me in a way who I am today, because in their genuine sharing, not only did I learn a lot, I managed to dodge a lot of mistakes that I actually made. But I guess one of the key things that I really so-called faced as huge difficulty was I actually had to close my business and really cut a lot of staff that's been with me for a very long period of time. And that was really in terms of aggressively growing the business and taking certain risks that in looking back and on hindsight, I could probably not have been so aggressive in growing that. But that also led towards a learning experience of where I am today, so that allows me then to grow much bigger and much stronger as well. But I guess that was the most difficult time to really let some of the people, especially when they are super talented, they are loyal, and most importantly, they believe in the objective and cause of the company, and unfortunately, having to let them go. The people that I really find and admire and respectful is the ones that make the toughest decision, even though they could have taken a much shorter route. Whether it's in terms of making a difficult decision to grow a specific team, but they might know they might lose a lot of so-called funds or money of the likes, or holding themselves to integrity for a business so-called agreement, they just make over a gentleman's handshake. Even though nothing's on contract, they decide to still follow on through with it because they already have made agreement. I think today it's really, really tough to find people who are really honoring their word and having that forms of integrity, because in a way, the world's becoming tougher and tougher, especially through the pandemic itself. But to be able to hold true to the word, I think that's something that's really tough. And I have a few friends and a couple of mentors that consistently maintain that form of integrity, maintain that form of respect. And these are the people that I really admire and respect, especially in hard times. I'll say when I first started, a lot of it was very much looking at people who were so-called monetarily very wealthy, and of course the definition changed. I set my first goal when I was 14 to hit 1 million before the age of 26, right? But after as I grew up, 1 million is not really a lot, definitively. Not to be arrogant or anything, but definitively you can't really do much to a certain extent, right? Inflation of the likes. I realized when I started defining and looking back at the values that I actually have, and I define actually what really makes me happy. It's not just so much the monetary value, but I realize there are key values that I hold very dear. And number one, it's actually in the areas of freedom. And that's very funny, right? Because when you run a business, you think you have financial freedom, you think you have you have freedom of time, you have freedom of choices. Oh, on the contrary.
It's the opposite.
Exactly, 100%, no time, no option, so-called. Financial-wise, you always need to pay payroll and of the likes. So I define that would very much be one of the key things that I'm highly passionate about. But at the same time, on the other side, one of the things that I realize I'm having a high value in is in trying out new things, in learning. And in a short period in the journey that I actually have, why I always pursue certain things that are exciting or it's new, it's very much a learning experience where I can then build up my knowledge, my know-how, and eventually also making an impact towards the people that have around me. So putting that together, then I realized, okay, freedom's something I really enjoy. Running a business might not naturally fulfill that, at least in the short term, but at the same time, that's that learning component that I'm really, really passionate about. So I guess as I start to continue to mature and hit different phases in life, so-called the weightage of moving very much from that learning towards that freedom, towards impacting other people, will start to shift in different weightages. So I say at this point in my life, I'll continue to like to explore new things, continue to learn, to try out different things that can possibly impact the world itself. And as I continue to mature, then probably that freedom part will start becoming a little bit heavier, and at the same time continue to do things that can probably impact the world itself.
Do you have a diary of yourself and then you actually reflect on what had happened during the day?
I guess number one, making a lot of mistakes. Making a lot of expensive mistakes.
All right.
And speaking to people who's been there and done that. Because that's the fastest way to learn, and that's the fastest way to identify if there was mistakes or not. So today, one of the things I constantly do, other than having the own thoughts I have, I speak to a lot of people on a specific idea, on a specific business model I like to push. And not saying that everything that they say is actually right. Making my own vision and business call on that over the years of experience has helped me better reflect on what I should or should not do. And if it doesn't turn out well, great, it's a learning experience that I can add to my repertoire of what I should or should not do in the future as well. So it's just really talking to a lot of people on the ground and finding out what's right, what's not, and testing things out along the way. I would say a lot of things that I have, it's very much learning experiences. And if you ask me if I would go back in life and do something different, what would I actually do? Honestly, I have no idea. because maybe I might turn out really differently and of the likes. Were there a lot of mistakes that I've made? Was there a lot of money that was lost? Were there a lot of people that basically I've disappointed of the likes? Definitely yes. But would I be able to go back and make a difference? Realistically, not now, definitely. But that's, I guess, something that has led me to be who I am today. And I'm happy with who I am today. Something that I really have found a lot of passion, especially in the last 5 years, is to see a lot of the people that I have within the company grow. And that's something that's highly fulfilling. Probably something I wouldn't have really realized like 10 years before, because I was aggressively chasing for a lot of objectives. But in today's space and in the last 5 years, to see the team really grow and take on more responsibilities, being able to manage other people, being able to coach other people to become better people, I think that's something that I find really fulfilling. And in fact, that allows me to move a little bit closer to my goal of freedom so that I'm able to have more time to reflect back, identify things that I can better do to improve both the company and the people. So I think that's really one of the key highlights over the last 5 years. And even with pandemic, we didn't have to let people go or reduce their pay of the likes, right? But we constantly progress. I think that's something that's been really fortunate for ourselves. I think if I were to summarize that, I personally believe it's very much in the areas of trust. And I think the key areas that very much I'm in today, whether it's blockchain or cryptocurrency of the likes, yes, it's super attractive, but many a time, that's what blockchain fundamentally is on. It's actually on trust. And I guess one of the reasons why we're able to interact with a lot of clients is because they trust that we are able to do the things that we say we do, but more importantly, they trust that the interests are very much aligned with them as well. I guess that's the reason why a lot of clients stick with us and continue with us up to today. And that is what really differentiates us. I think that would be something highly meaningful, where I can create a company that's $1 billion and help other people create their own $1 billion companies. And in fact, they can pay it forward to create a social impact fund. And having that as a continuous ecosystem, I believe would be something that would be highly enduring and would be probably the legacy I can leave behind.